Welcome everyone to tonight's preview show for the intelligence assessment with Kevin Shipp. Kevin, thank you for joining me again tonight.
Hi, Jason. It's good to be with you.
Good to be with you. And we've got a little upgrade to the audio quality today. You sound much nicer than you have in the
Good.
past, so that's a good thing. So pleased to have you with us. This is a really important topic we're going to be covering tonight, and I want to make sure that all of our viewers know that the intelligence assessment with Kevin Shipp is an exclusive live stream that's available only to Patreon sponsors. You can get the stream by going to patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp or patreon.com/Crowdsource the Truth, and you can become a sponsor of Kevin's channel or of Crowdsource the Truth, or of course both channels, and you're going to get a wide range of really important information, and of course you're going to get access to these exclusive live streams. Kevin, we've just come out of this confirmation process for Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, and it was really unprecedented in a number of ways. Can you take us through some of what we're going to be talking about tonight at 7 o'clock on Patreon?
Yeah, thank you, Jason. The big question everyone is asking, based on what we have just seen, and of course, a decade or so before that, are we in some kind of brewing civil war in America? What the Kavanaugh hearing was not about was Kavanaugh himself. It was about what a segment of our population despises, and that's essentially the founding principles of the United States. We saw people come out scratching and clawing at the doors of the Supreme Court, shrieking. It sounded like mental patients, some of them. People being pushed around, shoved, slapped in mob blockages against some congressmen, senators. Of course, Rand Paul was badly beaten up, and he's a constitutionalist for his views. So in this last Kavanaugh hearing, we saw how low, particularly the DNC, will go, and I'll discuss tonight that the Democratic National Convention, the DNC, is not the Democratic Party of JFK. My family were JFK Democrats, and the DNC is so far from that now. There's no comparison. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about whether there is or is not a coming conflict, civil war, like in the United States, and we'll get into that into some detail.
You know, Kevin, you've spoken with me so many times about Hillary Clinton's role in the deep state, how even as First Lady under President William Jefferson Clinton, she was given a CIA top secret clearance, which is unprecedented as far as we know for a First Lady. And she's now publicly saying you can't be civil. How could she do something so irresponsible?
Yeah, and that I'll tell you, Jason, that's a first. I guess a whistleblowing nature. Nobody has come forth and advised, and I think this is worth a congressional investigation. Hillary Clinton, as First Lady, was given a CIA clearance in violation of the DSKID regulations, with no background check, no polygraph, no nothing, just given a top secret shadow government
Wow.
CIA clearance when she was First Lady, and that is criminal, essentially. So it all started back then, and of course we see now that she's engaged in this soft coup against Donald Trump and on behalf or through the DNC. So this has all come out into full view, and I've known and others for years that this thing has been there, but lately it's come out where almost everybody who's willing can see it.
It's amazing, Kevin. You know, I was having a conversation with Scott Bennett just yesterday. I think you're aware of Scott. He's the Army PSYOP whistleblower who wrote the book Shell Game, and he's gone extensively into some of the details about Benghazi. He's introduced me to the Moriartys, who were Texas business people, a husband and wife, who had some oil processing technology that was very unique, and they were offering to various oil producers in Libya, and they have firsthand knowledge of some of the things that went on in the run-up to the assault on the CIA compound in Benghazi. That's frequently been misidentified as a U.S. embassy, but it was a CIA stronghold, isn't that correct?
Oh, yes, CIA had a base in Benghazi, and it was not anybody directly back in Washington. The stand down order for Chris Bronto and the others to stand down, not to go and help the Americans in the actual consulate, that was given by the CIA chief in that base that you're talking about. And of course, he got his orders from Washington. But ultimately, that came from the CIA chief telling them to leave the Americans out there in the consulate to die. And Tonto and others, of course, disobeyed that. So that's, yeah. And it was essentially a gun running operation. Hillary Clinton was running guns into Benghazi using Saudi Arabia and Qatar's cutouts. And those weapons wound up in the hands of the Free Syrian Army, eventually Al Qaeda, and now they're in the hands of ISIS.
And of course, that was a component in a larger plan to wreak havoc throughout the Middle East, something that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama essentially hatched as their own little sort of massive destruction plan. Michael Flynn, who of course was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, blew the whistle. He went on to RT and said that he felt that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton had deliberately created ISIS, and hell has rained down on General Flynn since then. Lawfare and various public smears have been used to remove him from a position where he could have acted on these things and assisted President Donald Trump in revealing what can only be described as a sinister, truly evil plan. The Moriartys go on to describe how prosperous Libya was, highest per capita annual income of any country in Africa. Muammar Gaddafi, of course, was the president of the African Union, huge advocate for a gold-based currency, the African dinar, to challenge the US dollar and the euro on the international stage and to be a currency for the sale of oil. So it's shocking to me that these people who support Hillary Clinton and are so against Donald Trump and Brett Kavanaugh, they say nothing about the wanton destruction of a prosperous country in Africa.
Yeah, and these people, of course, they're not being taught that in the universities anymore, but these people do not practice critical thinking. They're ideological believers. If they were to practice critical thinking and look at what Hillary Clinton has done and is doing, they'd run from her like the plague, but they don't, because they don't practice critical thinking, and I think many of them do not want to. It's an ideology. It's almost a religion with people like that.
Yeah, and I want to remind people that we're going to be going live with the intelligence assessment with Kevin Shipp in just about 23 minutes on Patreon. So if you're not yet a sponsor of Kevin, please go to patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp, or of course patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. For as little as $1 a month, you can become a sponsor of either of those channels. You could become a sponsor of both, and you're going to enjoy exclusive live streams. Kevin and I are doing the intelligence assessment every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Tonight we're going to be talking about Hillary Clinton and other Democratic political leaders and their unprecedented call for violence. We've now heard Cory Booker instruct people to get in people's faces. We've heard the sinister Eric Holder tell people that when they go low, we kick them. Hillary's saying you can't be civil. This is a real serious issue, Kevin. We've got some of the political thought leaders of our day calling openly for violence. It's unprecedented.
Yes, it is.
So hopefully we can curtail this. Frankly, I'm quite pleased that Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed. I think we share some concerns about Justice Kavanaugh's record in terms of the Fourth Amendment. He was, of course, part of George W. Bush's cabinet and one of the people that was pivotal in creating the Patriot Act. He's made some decisions in the past that I don't think agree with what you or I would consider protecting our right for freedom from unreasonable search and seizure. It does come down to a legal debate over what is or is not reasonable, but I think I share your disappointment that the confirmation process did not focus on Mr. Kavanaugh's performance as a judge, but rather it focused on what you have given us great detailed insights on what appears to be a fraudulent testimony from Dr. Christine Blasey Ford.
Absolutely. Yeah. As a former polygraph examiner, there's no question about she lied through the entire thing. And it's pretty clear she had been coached several times by
operatives of the DNC and her own attorneys, and I think there may be a bar investigation on that. But yeah, it was just right out there in everybody's face that they were trying to destroy this man, not because of Kavanaugh the man, but because of what he stood for, at least in their eyes.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, irrespective of what we know about the facts relative to that testimony, certainly people that are running to the support of Dr. Ford are not respecting remotely our constitutional right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. Instead, they've got this fictional notion that everyone has the right to be believed. Kevin, I know you're a constitutionalist and you've read the Constitution thoroughly many times. Have you seen in there any right to be believed? Did I miss that somehow?
You could, if you didn't know better, you'd think they were just beyond stupid. And that's just a clear indication they're doing this intentionally. There's nothing like that, as we know, in the Constitution, jurisprudence, in our criminal justice system. One of America's greatest foundation is innocent until proven guilty. Yes. That was completely thrown out because they don't care about that. What they care about is holding on to power and changing essentially our constitutional form of government.
Yeah, and obviously as senators, as public figures, as leaders in government, these individuals have a massive nationwide platform and a lot of inherent respect for the things that they say. I find it incredibly irresponsible for a senator to put that idea out there into the public. I've spoken to many people who now believe that that's a legitimate thing, that people have the right to be believed. I've spoken to lawyers who agreed with that statement, which is totally stunning to me.
Yeah, and my own humble personal opinion, I think we could use a lot less lawyers in Congress and the Senate. That's one of our problems. No offense to lawyers, I got one I'm very close to. Excuse me, with my case, but yeah, lawyers know better than that. The Constitution is the ultimate law of the land. It's the supreme law of the land, and any attorney that still has their brain between their ears understands that the Constitution is our legal foundation and the foundation of our entire legal system. So once again, ideology takes over critical thinking. There we go again.
Yeah, and I mean, again, my personal feeling is that this was an attempt on the part of Dianne Feinstein and her fellow Democrats to sort of put a really highly emotional charged issue ahead of the facts, ahead of the law, ahead of the Constitution, and really get people sort of at each other's throats. And it's become an argument about, you don't believe victims. And I think they've also tried to make it a men versus women thing, because I don't think it's just a matter of Brett Kavanaugh being a white male and this patriarchal thing. This very important right to the presumption of innocence is something that each of us should be guarding jealously, and it does not switch off when you're in a job interview. That's another thing that a lot of wrong-headed people are thinking, that because it wasn't a criminal trial but rather a job interview as they classify it, that he has no right to the presumption of innocence. And I think that's fundamentally opposed to what this country is supposed to be about. I think people should be going to fortheloveoffreedom.net to read all about Kevin's problems with the CIA when he tried to blow the whistle on what was an obvious and dangerous cybersecurity breach. If it were not for the Constitution and the due process of law, Kevin would be screwed, as they say. And Kevin, tell us a little bit more about From the Company of Shadows.
Well, from the Company of Shadows, I get into how the CIA conducts operations, recruits agents, some humorous stories when I was an officer there. I also get into the CIA's cover-up of the poisoning of my family after I uncovered assassination threats to our agents. And the CIA blacked out the entire portion of the poisoning, the doctor's diagnoses, the environmental test. By the way, the environmental inspector was shot in the head a month after our appeal. But the CIA blacked all of that out from the Company of Shadows, which is illegal based on an executive order for them to do that. So I built a code into the book that exposes those blackouts, that in fact they were covering up the information, the poisoning of my wife and kids. And that's what the book is about. And amazingly, they allowed me to put in how the CIA recruits agents, some of my operational assignments I was on, but they blacked that out. In any event, that was my wake-up call to the shadow government and the absolute gross abuse of secrecy that has circumvented the Constitution, and not even Congress can stop it.
And people can get a signed copy of the book as well as the coded information if they order the book from FromTheLoveOfFreedom.net. We're going to be starting the intelligence assessment with Kevin Shipp in just 15 minutes. And of course, that's only on Patreon. If people are not yet sponsoring Kevin on Patreon, please go to patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp. And you can also watch that program by going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You're going to get access to exclusive live streams. And Kevin, what we'll do right now is we'll wrap up this preview stream and get everybody ready for the intelligence assessment, which is going to be starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you there, Kevin, only on Patreon.
Got it, Jason. Looking forward to it.